it's interesting because a lot of doctors focus so much on TSH, and you're saying don't focus on TSH as a diagnosis.
Yeah, that was developed by the actual biological indicators that were developed in the 1930s. About 40% of the American population showed low metabolic rate associated with symptoms which were cured by giving thyroid enough to bring their metabolic rate up. But in the late 1940s, the drug companies synthesized thyroxine, and they tested it on 25-year-old male medical students. And in these healthy young men, they said it worked just like Armour thyroid. It worked just like the thyroid hormone. And on the basis of that, almost non-existent evidence that it was equivalent to the thyroid hormone function, they began selling it. And they were developing tests to diagnose who needed it. And they didn't have tests to measure very small amounts of the actual hormone, so they measured protein-bound iodine. And it seemed that 95% of the population had enough protein-bound iodine. And that idea that came to be accepted as the normal. In the 1960s and 70s, the immunoassays were developed that could actually measure the amount of thyroxine in the blood, and it turned out that protein-bound iodine didn't have anything to do with thyroid function. But doctors had learned that the 95% of the population were not hypothyroid. So when they learned to measure thyroid-stimulating hormone, they applied the measurements to this meaningless doctrine that only 5% of the population were hypothyroid. So it's a good test, but the context and history have made it irrelevant to actual diagnosis.
Now, what about, and I think from reading your stuff, my gist, and I could be wrong, and you could have just said it, I'm just hearing it differently, there's just too many factors like adrenaline, cortisol, prolactin, estrogen, all these things that can actually, that are down-regulating the thyroid, that are showing you, quote-unquote, you're hypothyroid. It's not really the thyroid that's the problem. It's all these other things based on the stress response or toxins or blood sugar that are creating the lab result. Is that correct?
Yeah. About 10 years ago, I started hearing people telling me that their doctors had diagnosed them as being both hyperthyroid and hypothyroid at the very same moment. More and more people were getting this diagnosis, which really shows that a crisis of confusion had taken over the profession around 10 years ago, that people, on the basis of their blood tests, could be both hyper and hypo at the same time. And this misleading indicator diagnosis led them to diagnose many people who were suffering hypothyroidism as hyperthyroid without measuring their oxygen consumption, their body temperature, or looking at most of their symptoms, or how many calories they were burning in a day. Looking at these other indicators, people who were clearly hypothyroid and who would lose their symptoms if they took a thyroid supplement, they were being diagnosed as hyperthyroid, having either their thyroid gland removed or being given radioactive iodine to destroy it, on the basis of a complete misunderstanding of even what constitutes hyperthyroidism.